The Odyssey by Homer. Book 12. The Cattle of the Sun. Now, when our ship had left the ocean river rolling in her wake, and launched out into open sea, with its long swells to reach the island of Aia, east, where the dawn forever young has home and dancing rings, and the sun his risings. Heading in, we beached our craft on the sands. The crew swung out on the low sloping shore, and there we fell asleep, awaiting dawn's first light. As soon as dawn with her rose-red fingers shone again, I dispatched some men to Circe's halls to bring the dead Elepnor's body. We cut logs in haste, and out on the island's sharpest jutting headland held his funeral rites in sorrow, streaming tears. Once we'd burned the dead man and the dead man's armor, heaping his grave mound, holding a stone that coped it well. We planted his balanced oar aloft to crown his tomb. And so we saw to his rites, each step in turn. Nor did our coming back from death escape Circe. She hurried toward us, decked in rich regalia, handmaids following close with trays of bread and meats galore, and glinting ruddy wine. And the lustrous goddess, standing in our midst, hailed us warmly. "Ah, my darling, reckless friends, you ventured down the house of death alive. Doomed to die twice over, others die just once. Come, take some food and drink some wine. Rest here the livelong day, and then, tomorrow at daybreak, you must sail. But I will set you a course and chart each sea mark, so neither on sea nor land will some new trap ensnare you in trouble, make you suffer more." Her foresight won our fighting spirits over. So all that day, till the sun went down, we sat and feasted on sides of meat and heady wine, and then, when the sun had set and night came on, the men lay down to sleep by the ship's stern cables. But Circe, taking me by the hand, drew me away from all my shipmates there, and sat me down, and lying beside me probed me for details. I told her the whole story, start to finish. Then the queenly goddess laid my course. "Your descent to the dead is over, true, but listen closely to what I tell you now, and God himself will bring it back to mind. First, you will raise the island of the sirens, those creatures who spellbind any man alive, whoever comes their way, whoever draws too close, off guard, and catches the sirens' voices in the air. No sailing home for him, no wife rising to meet him, no happy children beaming up at their father's face. The high, thrilling song of the sirens will transfix him. Lolling there in their meadow, and round them heaps of bones rotting away, rags of skin shriveling on their bones. Race straight past that coast, soften some beeswax, and stop your shipmates' ears so none can hear. None of the crew, but if you are bent on hearing, have them tie you hand and foot in the swift ship, erect at the mast block, lashed by ropes to the mast so you can hear the siren's song to your heart's content. But if you plead, commanding your men to set you free, then they must lash you faster, rope on rope. But once your crew has rowed you past the sirens, a choice of routes is yours. I cannot advise you which to take or lead you through it all. You must decide for yourself. But I can tell you the ways of either course. On one side, beetling cliffs shoot up, and against them pound the huge roaring breakers of the blue-eyed Amphitrite. The clashing rocks they're called by all the blissful gods. Not even birds can escape them, no, not even the doves that veer and fly ambrosia home to Father Zeus. Even of those the sheer rocks always pick off one, and Father wings one more to keep the number up. No ship of men has ever approached and slipped past. Always some disaster. Big timbers and sailors' corpses whirled away by the waves and lethal blasts of fire. One ship alone, one deep-sea craft sailed clear, the Argo, sung by the world, and when heading home from Aeetes' shores, and she would have crashed against those giant rocks and sunk at once if Hera, for love of Jason, had not sped her through. On the other side loomed two enormous crags. One thrusts into the vaulting sky its jagged peak, hooded round with a dark cloud that never leaves. No clear bright air can ever bathe its crown, not even in summer's heat or harvest time. No man on earth could scale it, mount its crest, not even with 20 hands and 20 feet for climbing. The rocks so smooth like dressed and burnished stone. And halfway up that cliffside stands a fog-bound cavern, gaping west toward Erebus, realm of death and darkness. Past it, great Odysseus, you should steer your ship. No rugged young archer could hit that yawning cave with a winged arrow shot from off the decks. Scylla lurks inside it. The yelping horror, yelping no louder than any suckling pup, but she's a grisly monster, I assure you. No one could look on her with any joy, not even a god who meets her face to face. She has 12 legs, all writhing, dangling down in 6 long, swaying necks, a hideous head on each head barbed with a triple row of fangs, thick-set, packed tight, armed to the hilt with black death. Holed up in the cavern's bowels, from her waist down, she shoots out her heads, out of that terrifying pit, angling right from her nest, wildly sweeping the reefs for dolphins, dogfish, or any bigger quarry she can drag from the thousands Amphitrite spawns in groaning seas. No mariners can boast they've raced their ship past Scylla's lair without some mortal blow. With each of her 6 heads, she snatches up a man from the dark-prowed craft and whisks him off. The other crag is lower, you will see, Odysseus, though both lie side by side. An arrow shot apart. Atop it, a great fig tree rises, shaggy with leaves. Beneath it, awesome Charybdis gulps the dark water down. 3 times a day she vomits it up. 3 times she gulps it down. That terror. Don't be there when the whirlpool swallows down. Not even the earthquake god could save you from disaster. No. Hug Scylla's crag. Sail on past her. Top speed. Better by far to lose 6 men and keep your ship than lose your entire crew. Yes, but tell me the truth now, goddess, I protested. Deadly Charybdis, can't I possibly cut and run from her, and still fight Scylla off when Scylla strikes my men? So stubborn, the lovely goddess countered, hell-bent yet again on battle and feats of arms. Can't you bow to the deathless gods themselves? Scylla's no mortal. She's an immortal devastation. Terrible, savage, wild. No fighting her, no defense. Just flee the creature. That's the only way. Waste any time arming for battle beside her rock, I fear she'll lunge out again with all her 6 heads and seize as many men. No. Row for your lives, invoke brute force. I tell you, Scylla's mother, she spawned her to scourge mankind. She can stop the monster's next attack. Then, you will make the island of Thrinacia, where herds of the sun god's cattle graze, and fat sheep and 7 herds of oxen, as many sheep flocks, rich and woolly, 50 head in each. No breeding swells their number, nor do they ever die. And goddesses herd them, nymphs with glinting hair. Pithausa, Lampetie, born to the sun god Helios, by radiant Nerea. Their queenly mother bred and reared them both, then settled them on the island of Thrinacia, their homeland seas away, to guard their father's sheep and long-horn cattle. Leave the beasts unharmed, your mind set on home, and you all may still reach Ithaca, bent with hardship, true, but harm them in any way. And I can see it now. Your ship destroyed, your men destroyed as well. And even if you escape, you'll come home late, all shipmates lost, and come a broken man. At those words, Dawn rose on her golden throne, and lustrous Circe made her way back up the island. I went straight to my ship, commanding all hands to take the decks and cast off cables quickly. They swung aboard at once. They sat to the oars in ranks and in rhythm, churned the water white with stroke on stroke. And Circe, the nymph with glossy braids, the awesome one who speaks with human voice, sent us a hardy shipmate, yes, a fresh following wind ruffling up in our wake, bellying out our sail to drive our blue prow on, as we, securing the running gear from stem to stern, sat back while the wind and helmsman kept her true on course. At last, and sore at heart, I told my shipmates, "Friends, it's wrong for only one or two to know the revelations that lovely Circe made to me alone. I'll tell you all, so we can die with our eyes wide open now, or escape our fate and certain death together." First, she warns we must steer clear of the sirens. Their enchanting song, their meadow starred with flowers. I alone was to hear their voices, so she said, "But you must bind me with tight chafing ropes, so I cannot move a muscle, bound to the spot erect at the mast block, lashed by ropes to the mast. And if I plead, commanding you to set me free, then lash me faster, rope on pressing rope." So I informed my shipmates point by point. All the while, our trim ship was speeding toward the Sirens' Island, driven on by the brisk wind. But then the wind fell in an instant. All glazed to a dead calm. A mysterious power hushed the heaving swales. The oarsmen leapt to their feet, struck the sail, stowed it deep in the hold, and sat to the oarlocks, thrashing with polished oars, frothing the water white. Now with a sharp sword I sliced an ample wheel of beeswax down into pieces. I kneaded them in my 2 strong hands, and the wax soon grew soft, worked by my strength and Helios's burning rays, the sun at high noon, and I stopped the ears of my comrades one by one. They bound me hand and foot in the tight ship, erect at the mast block, lashed by ropes to the mast, and rowed and churned the whitecap stroke on stroke. We were just offshore, as far as a man's shout can carry, scuttling close, when the sirens sensed at once a ship was racing past, and burst into their high, thrilling song. "Come closer, famous Odysseus, Archaea's pride and glory. Moor your ship on our coast, so you can hear our song. Never has any sailor passed our shores in his black craft until he has heard the honeyed voices pouring from our lips, and once he hears to his heart's content, sails on a wiser man. We know all the pains that Achaeans and Trojans once endured on the spreading plain of Troy, when the gods willed it so, all that comes to pass on the fertile earth, we know it all. So they sent their ravishing voices across the air, and the heart inside me throbbed to listen longer. I signaled the crew with frowns to set me free. They flung themselves at the oars and rowed on harder. Perimedes and Eurylochus springing up at once to bind me faster with rope on chafing rope. But once we'd left the sirens fading in our wake, once we could hear their song no more, their urgent call, my steadfast crew was quick to remove the wax I'd used to seal their ears, and loose the bonds that lashed me. We'd scarcely put that island astern, when suddenly I saw smoke and heavy breakers, heard their booming thunder. The men were terrified. Oar blades flew from their grip, clattering down to splash in the vessel's wash. She lay there, dead in the water. No hands to tug the blades that drove her on. But I strode down the decks to rouse my crewmen, halting beside each one with a bracing, winning word. Friends, we're hardly strangers at meeting danger, and this danger is no worse than what we faced when Cyclops penned us up in his vaulted cave with crushing force. But even from there, my courage, my presence of mind and tactics saved us all, and we will live to remember this someday. I have no doubt. Up now, follow my orders, all of us, work as one. You men at the thwarts, lay on with your oars and strike the heaving swells, trusting that Zeus will pull us through these straits alive. You, helmsman, here's your order. Burn it in your mind. The steering oar of our ruling ship is in your hands. Keep her clear of that smoke and surging breakers. Head for the crags, or she'll catch you off guard. She'll yaw over there. You'll plunge us all in ruin. So I shouted. They snapped to each command, no mention of Scylla. How to fight that nightmare? For fear the men would panic, desert their oars, and huddle down and stow themselves away. But now, I cleared my mind of Circe's orders, cramping my style, urging me not to arm at all. I donned my heroic armor, seized long spears in both my hands, and marched out on the half-deck, forward, hoping from there to catch the first glimpse of Scylla, ghoul of the cliffs, swooping to kill my men, but nowhere could I make her out. And my eyes ached, scanning that mist-bound rock face, top to bottom. Now, wailing in fear, we rowed up on those straits, Scylla to starboard, dreaded Charybdis off to port. Her horrible whirlpool, gulping the sea, surged down, down, but when she spewed it up, like a cauldron over a raging fire, all her churning depths would seethe and heave, exploding spray showering down to splatter the peaks of both crags at once. But when she swallowed the sea surge down her gaping maw, the whole abyss lay bare, and the rocks around her roared, terrible, deafening. Bedrock showed down deep, boiling black with sand, and ashen terror gripped the men. But now fearing death, all eyes fixed on Charybdis. Now Scylla snatched 6 men from our hollow ship, the toughest, strongest hands I had, and glancing backwards over the deck, searching for my crew, I could see their hands and feet already hoisted, flailing higher, higher, over my head. Look! Wailing down at me, comrades riven in agony, shrieking out my name for one last time. Just as an angler poised on a jutting rock flings his treacherous bail in the offshore swell, whips his long rod hook sheathed in an ox-horn lure, and whisks up little fish he flips on the beach break, writhing, gasping out their lives, so now they writhed, gasping, as Scylla swung them up her cliff. And there, at her cavern's mouth, she bolted them down raw, screaming out, flinging their arms toward me, lost in that mortal struggle. Of all the pitiful things I've had to witness suffering searching out the pathways of the sea. This wrenched my heart the most, but now, at last, putting the rock, Scylla, and dread Charybdis far astern, we quickly reached the good green island of the sun, where Helios, Lord Hyperion, keeps his fine cattle, broad in the brow, and flocks of pure-bred sheep. Still aboard my black ship in the open sea, I could hear the lowing cattle, driven home, the bleating sheep, and I was struck once more by the words of the blind Theban prophet, Tiresias, and Aerian Circe too. Time and again they told me to shun this island of the sun, the joy of man. So I warned my shipmates gravely, sick at heart. Listen to me, my comrades, brothers in hardship. Let me tell you the dire prophecies of Tiresias and Aeaean Circe too. Time and again they told me to shun this island of the sun, the joy of man. Here, they warned, the worst disaster awaits us. Row straight past these shores. Race our black ship on. So I said, and the warnings broke their hearts, but Eurylochus waded in at once, with mutiny on his mind. You're a hard man, Odysseus. Your fighting spirit's stronger than ours. Your stamina never fails. You must be made of iron, head to foot. Look, your crew's half dead with labor, starved for sleep, and you forbid us to set foot on land, this island here, washed by the waves where we might catch a decent meal again. Drained as we are, night falling fast, you'd have us desert this haven and blunder off into that mist-bound sea? Out of the night comes winds that shatter vessels. How can a man escape his headlong death if suddenly, out of nowhere, a cyclone hits? Bred by the south or stormy west wind. They're the gales that tear a ship to splinters, the gods, our masters, willing or not, it seems. No, let's give way to the dark night. Set out supper here, sit tight by our swift ship, and then at daybreak, board and launcher, make for open sea. So Eurylochus urged, and shipmates cheered. Then I knew some power was brewing trouble for us, so I let fly with an anxious plea. Eurylochus, I'm one against all. The upper hand is yours, but swear me a blinding oath, all here, that if we come on a herd of cattle or fine flock of sheep, not one man among us, blind in his reckless ways, will slaughter an ox or ram. Just eat in peace, content with the food immortal Circe gave us. They quickly saw the oath that I required, and once they had vowed they'd never harm the herds, they moored our sturdy ship in the deep narrow harbor, close to a fresh spring, and all hands disembarked and adeptly set about the evening meal. Once they'd put aside desire for food and drink, they recalled our dear companions, wept for the men that Scylla plucked from the hollow ship and ate alive, and a welcome sleep came on them in their tears. But then, at the night's third watch, the stars just wheeling down, Zeus, who marshals the storm clouds, loosed a ripping wind, a howling demonic gale, shrouding over in thunderheads the earth and sea at once. And night swept down from the sky. When young dawn, with her rose-red fingers, shone once more, we hauled our craft ashore, securing her in a vaulted cave where nymphs have lovely dancing rings and hold their sessions. There I called a muster, warning my shipmates yet again, friends, we've food and drink aplenty aboard the ship. Keep hands off all those herds, or we will pay the price. The cattle, the sleek flocks, belong to an awesome master, Helios, god of the sun, who sees all, hears all things. So I warned, and my headstrong men complied, but for 1 whole month the south wind blew non-stop. No other wind came up, none but the southeast. As long as our food and ruddy wine held out, the crew, eager to save their lives, kept hands off the herds. But then, when supplies aboard had all run dry, when the men turned to hunting, forced to range for quarry with twisted hooks for fish, birds, anything they could lay their hands on, hunger racked their bellies. I struck inland, up the island, there to pray to the gods. If only one might show me some way home. Crossed into the heartland, clear of the crew, I rinsed my hands in a sheltered spot, a windbreak. But soon as I prayed to all the gods who rule Olympus, down on my eyes they poured a sweet, sound sleep, as Eurylochus opened up his fatal plan to friends. Listen to me, my comrades. Brothers in hardship, all ways of dying are hateful to us poor mortals, true, but to die of hunger, starve to death, that's the worst of all. So up with you now. Let's drive off the pick of Helios's sleek herds. Slaughter them to the gods who rule the skies up there. If we ever make it home to Ithaca, native ground, erect at once a glorious temple to the sun god, line the walls with hordes of dazzling gifts. But if the sun, inflamed for his long-horned cattle, means to wreck our ship, and the other gods pitch in, I'd rather die at sea with one gulp of death than die by inches on this desolate island here. So he urged, and shipmates cheered again. At once, they drove off the sun god's finest cattle, close at hand. Not far from the blue-prowed ship they grazed. These splendid beasts with their broad brows and curving horns. Surrounding them in a ring, they lifted prayers to the gods, plucking fresh green leaves from a tall oak for the rite. Since white-strewing barley was long gone in the ship, once they'd prayed, slaughtered, and skinned the cattle, they cut the thigh bones out, they wrapped them round in fat, a double fold sliced clean and topped with strips of flesh. And since they had no wine to anoint the glowing victims, they made libations with water, broiling all the innards, and once they'd burned the bones and tasted the organs, hacked the rest into pieces, piercing them with splits. That moment, soothing slumber fell from my eyes, and down I went to our ship at the water's edge. But on my way, nearing the long-beaked craft, the smoky savor of roasts came floating up around me. I groaned in anguish, crying out to the deathless gods, Father Zeus, the rest of you blissful gods who never die, you with your fatal sleep, you lulled me into disaster. Left on their own, look at what a monstrous thing my crew concocted. Quick as a flash with her flaring robes, Lampede sped the news to the sun on high that we had killed his herds, and Helios burst out in rage to all the immortals. Father Zeus, the rest of you blissful gods who never die, punish them all. That crew of Laertes' son Odysseus, what an outrage! They killed my cattle, the great joy of my heart, day in, day out, when I climbed the starry skies and when I wheeled back down from the heights to touch the earth once more. Unless they pay me back in blood for the butchery of my herds, down I go to the house of death and blaze among the dead. But Zeus, who marshals the thunderheads, insisted, Son, you keep on shining among the deathless gods and mortal men across the good green earth, and as for the guilty ones, why, soon enough, on the wine-dark sea, I'll hit their racing ship with a white-hot bolt. I'll tear it into splinters. Or so I heard, from the lovely nymph Calypso, who heard it herself, she said, from Hermes, god of guides. As soon as I reached our ship at the water's edge, I took the men to task, upbraiding each in turn. But how to set things right? We couldn't find a way. The cattle were already dead, and the gods showed us all some fateful signs. The hides began to crawl. The meat, both raw and roasted, bellowed out on the spits. and we heard a noise like the moaning of lowing oxen. Yet 6 more days my eager companions feasted on the cattle of the sun, the pick of the herds they'd driven off. But then, when Cronian Zeus brought on the 7th day, the wind in its ceaseless raging dropped at last, and stepping the masts at once, hoisting the white sail, we boarded ship and launched her, made for open sea. But once we'd left that island in our wake, no land at all in sight, nothing but sea and sky. Then Zeus, the son of Cronos, mounted a thunderhead above our hollow ship, and the deep went black beneath it. Nor did the craft scud on much longer. All of a sudden, killer squalls attacked us, screaming out of the west. A murderous blast, shearing the 2 forestays off so the mast toppled backward, its running tackle spilling into the bilge. The mast itself went crashing into the stern. It struck the helmsman's head and crushed his skull to pulp. And down from his deck the man flipped like a diver. His hardy life spirit left his bones behind. Then, in the same breath, Zeus hit the craft with a lightning bolt and thunder. Round she spun, reeling under the impact, filled with reeking brimstone, shipmates pitching out of her, bobbing round like seahawks swept along by the whitecaps, past the trim black hull, and the god cut short their journey home forever. But I went lurching along our battered hulk, till the sea surge ripped the plankings from the keel, and the waves swirled it away, stripped bare, and snapped the mast from the decks. But a backstay made of bull's hide still held fast, and with this I lashed the mast and keel together, made them one, riding my makeshift raft as the wretched gale winds bore me on and on. At last the west wind quit its wild rages, but the south came on at once to hound me even more, making me double back my route toward cruel Charybdis. All night long I was rushed back, and then at the break of day I reached the crag of Scylla and dire Charybdis's vortex right when the dreadful whirlpool gulped the salt sea down. But heaving myself aloft to clutch at the fig tree's height, like a bat I clung to its trunk for dear life. Not a chance for a good firm foothold there, no clambering up it either, the roots too far to reach, the boughs too high overhead, huge swaying branches that overshadowed Charybdis. But I held on, dead set, waiting for her to vomit my mast and keel back up again. Oh, how I ached for both, and back they came, late but at last, at just the hour a judge at court, who settled the countless suits of brash young claimants, rises, the day's work done, and turns home for supper. That's when the timbers reared back up from Charybdis. I let go. I plunged with my hands and feet, flailing, crashed into the waves beside those great beams, and scrambling aboard them fast, I rowed hard with my hands, right through the straits. And the father of men and gods did not let Scylla see me, else I'd have died on the spot. No escape from death. I drifted along 9 days. On the 10th, at night, the gods cast me up on Ogygia, Calypso's island, home of the dangerous nymph with glossy braids who speaks with human voice. And she took me in. She loved me. Why cover the same ground again? Just yesterday here at Hall, I told you all the rest, you and your gracious wife. It goes against my grain to repeat a tale once told, and told so clearly.